And the man who sues Obama, my husband, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton.
Do you know how hard it is to follow that? Actually, this all started about 4 years ago when I get sworn into the Texas Senate. And the way that works is the night before you get sworn in, your spouse... Are you there? Everybody there? We're all alive? So the night before you get sworn into the Texas Senate, the tradition is we have a dinner. Statewides come, the governor, lieutenant governor, all the Supreme Court. And the person that's actually getting sworn in doesn't get to speak. Their spouse does. They introduce them. The typical fare is the spouse introduces and says some very nice, sappy things about their husband or wife, and everybody cries. And so we get to the deal. I'm dressed in my tux. We get to the hotel, the Four Seasons in Austin, and we're getting out of the car, and Angela says, this is before we've ever done anything like this, she says, "Can you get my guitar?" And I knew when I was getting the guitar that I was in trouble. So Angela sang a song that had the title Ode to Ken Paxton in front of a lot of really important people. And fortunately, after she got her standing ovation, I didn't have to follow her. But I know it went well because after it was over, I had to run to the restroom. I came back and she had all of these pictures with Karl Rove. He had wanted to take a picture with her because he said she was damn funny. So since she sang that song about me, I feel like it's okay, and you guys can tell me if you think I'm wrong, that I can tell a few stories about her. Is that okay? So I need to tell you, these are quick, so I need to tell you that when we were getting married, Angela said, I really want to be an author. I want to write a book. When she wants to write a book, she said, I've got the title, but I don't have the actual book yet. And the title of it is, One of Us Has to Work and It Shouldn't Be Me. She still has not written that book. Maybe you could help her, Glenn. So, growing up, Angela found out that she was, she's really smart. She was accepted into a thing that I had to look up called Mensa. So I didn't know what that was, but for those of you like me, it's genius category. And so her parents took her to the first Mensa meeting, and turned out it was at the Coors distributorship, and her parents, being Southern Baptist, that was her last Mensa meeting. So there. Well, I want to say, Angela mentioned that that I'm living in Austin a lot now, and people ask me all the time, isn't it challenging living there? It's a very liberal city, and the state reps that go down there know how liberal Travis County is, and I say, really, I don't mind living there because it's really not that far from Texas. So, well, I do want to thank Julie, and I want to thank this group. When I started running for AG, the thing that I knew I had to do, I had a 7-month campaign, which wasn't very long to cover 28 million people, and so you had to really target. And one of the things that we targeted was Tarrant County, because I might be wrong about this, but if you're running statewide and you don't win Tarrant County, you don't get elected. Am I right about that, Julie?
One time.
And what I always appreciated about this group is that you guys are true north. There's a lot of great Tea Parties out there. There's a lot of great Republicans out there. There's a lot of great people in Texas. And I find that even as good as they are, you find them veering off sometimes. But this group is one of those groups that seems to never veer off. It's true north. So thank you guys for what you do. And I mean that. Thank you for what you do, not just for Tarrant County. You're a light to the whole state. You're a light to the whole country.
Yep.
And I really mean that. It is amazing how often you get it right and how many people are looking at what you're doing around the state for direction. So thank you for what you're doing. Since I've been running for AG, you might have noticed I've been under a little bit of a political attack. You might have noticed that the media doesn't cover me very well. It says a few unflattering things, but I don't know if you remember this, but I'll let you see if you can remember. When I was running, anybody remember how many major statewide papers endorsed me in the primary when I was running against 2 Republicans? Anybody remember? Well, there it is, none. Okay, so then I got into the runoff, and then anybody remember how many newspapers endorsed me in the runoff? Shocking, it was none. Well, so then I got into the general election, and I was thinking there might be some hope here. I'm running against a guy named Sam Houston, which was a little tough. Anybody know how many papers endorsed me when I was running as a Democrat? The answer is none. So is it shocking to me that they're not helping me right now? You know, one of the things that I've noticed, and some of these state reps like Bill and Tony and Matt and Jonathan can attest to this. One of the things that has been most interesting to me and most challenging is that, you know, when I went into office in 2003 as a state rep, and then I ended up serving in the Senate, now as AG, one of the challenges you find out is sometimes your biggest challenge is not the Democratic Party. Sometimes it's some people in our own party. And I you know, you try to figure out why is that happening? Why is it tough for Bill Zedler sometimes? Why is it tough for Jonathan? And the reality is, when you go down to Austin and you're going to stick to your conservative principles, there are people in our own party oftentimes that find that too enlightening for them because they have their own path that they want to take. And so one of the things that I appreciate about this delegation from Tarrant County is that they have, much like the North Texas Tea Party, they've stayed on course, and they've been willing to take the hits in the legislature, personal hits, to stand up and do the right thing. So thank you guys for what you do in the Texas legislature. So I want you to imagine that you have a neighbor, you've lived next to this neighbor for 30 years, and that neighbor's been a pretty good neighbor. Sometimes we'll take out your dog when you're on vacation, water your plants, says hi every morning. And then after 35 years, that neighbor takes a new job. And when this neighbor takes a new job, suddenly this neighbor's in all kinds of trouble. He's being investigated by the IRS. He's got some of his bank accounts are being shut down. Some of his retirement accounts are being shut down. Then you find out the guy is being investigated by the Travis County DA, and then the Dallas County DA, then the Collin County DA. Then you find out the person's being investigated by the SEC. And you have to ask yourself, is there a character problem here? This person's been no trouble for 35 years, and then suddenly they have all this trouble. Well, that's, in essence, what's happened to me. I had no speeding ticket in my life, never been audited by the IRS, never been investigated by, no bar grievances with the state bar. I get sworn into office, and everything I just mentioned happened, including right now, the state bar is trying to figure out whether they want my license because I issued an opinion saying that district clerks have a First Amendment right to not marry people if they have a religious conviction that says that they don't want to marry people who are same-sex. And now I've got the state bar. So on August 1st, 2013, I announced that I was running for Attorney General of Texas. I was leaving a great spot in the state Senate, and I would have to admit to you right now, if I knew then what I know now about what I was going to have to go through, if it had all been put in front of me, what I've run, I would say on that day, I wouldn't have run. But I can tell you right now, having gone through the last year and 3 months in office, and knowing what I know now, I wouldn't trade anything that's happened to me and give up the opportunity that I've had. And so I want to tell you why I say that. And it's really there's been 4 issues we've really focused on. Law enforcement, people are shocked to know I have 180 policemen in my office. I didn't know really what they did, but I do now. Religious liberty, which after the marriage decision has been huge. It's been a huge focus in my office. Third is the life issue, which I'll talk a little bit about. And then finally, federal overreach, which surely we all anticipated. So let me talk a little bit about law enforcement just quickly. Just last month, we arrested 113 fugitives. Over the last year that I've been in office, we've done stings on child predators. We've arrested child predators all over the state. We've also had the opportunity to prosecute in the Chris Kyle case. So the person that killed Chris Kyle was prosecuted by my office and convicted with our help. And finally, there's an area that I'm really, really sad in one way about, but also excited, and that's human trafficking. We started a human trafficking unit just in January with 3 lawyers, 5 investigators, and a forensic accountant. Because Texas, sadly, has the second highest incidence of human trafficking in this country, and Houston is the #1 city in America. It's something that we need to educate people on, and if we can't educate to stop, we're going to go prosecute them. So I'm very sad, but also excited to have the opportunity to potentially make Texas not #2. I want to be number 50 in that category. So that's number 1. Number 2 is religious liberty. During session, we pushed a pastor protection bill. You wouldn't think we'd have to do that, But the bill was designed to protect, and Bill and these guys can tell you, Jonathan can tell you about this, it was designed to protect churches and pastors and people who work at churches from discrimination. And so fortunately we were able to pass that. We've also had an opportunity to be part of some amicus brief. An amicus brief is where we file a brief with the court, like the U.S. Supreme Court, which we did recently, in a case called Little Sisters of the Poor. Have you all heard of that case? I know you have. Well, so in that case, we have some nuns who are trying to help the poor, and the Obamacare mandate says that they have to do something in violation of their religious beliefs. And so we led the way with 20 states to file a brief defending their right and their religious liberty and their First Amendment right not to issue those contraceptives. We're waiting right now to see what the Supreme Court's going to say, and we're frankly a little nervous because obviously we don't have Scalia, and we lost at the previous court. We also had the opportunity to file another brief in the Koontz cheerleader case. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that, but these really treacherous high school cheerleaders wanted to put up banners with Bible verses on them so that the football players could run through, and the schools tried to stop them. It turned into a lawsuit. My office filed an amicus brief with the Supreme Court, and fortunately we were successful on that, and these really bad cheerleaders now can put Bible verses on their banners. Shocking, isn't it? The third issue is life, and these state reps can tell you we had quite a battle in 2013. My first term in the Senate, my last term in the Senate, and of course you remember Tarrant County is awesome, but I have to say you guys had a little problem here with a state senator. You remember her? She tried to run for governor, and she filibustered our House Bill 2, which was the bill that banned abortion after 20 weeks, and it also provided that doctors who do abortions have to be within 30 miles of where they do abortion. They have to be within a hospital if they have admitting privileges, and they have to do abortions at places that are up to other surgical centers. And strangely enough, we were not sued on the 20-week ban, which is what I expected. We were sued on the women's health issues. And so before I came into office, we lost at the trial court. The AGs lost at the trial court. My very first week in office, we were at the Fifth Circuit arguing HB 2, and fortunately we were successful. And then in March 2nd, we were at the U.S. Supreme Court because we were challenged both by the petitioner and by the Obama administration. Oddly enough, they joined our case against us. I guess they figure we've sued them enough, they might as well sue us. So we just had that case, and unfortunately Scalia's not there, but if we can get a 4-4 tie, we'll win because we won at the Fifth Circuit. So be watching for that. I'm guessing that case will be determined in June. So keep that in your prayers because obviously it's a huge case, not just for Texas, but that'll set precedent, even though it doesn't really set precedent because it's a 4-4 tie. It doesn't set precedent, but it'll still set precedent for the rest of the country. And then finally, I want to talk about federal overreach, which you all are very familiar with. I've had the opportunity to be in the U.S. Supreme Court so far 5 times since I've been in office in 13 months. We've also had the opportunity, unfortunate opportunity, of suing the Obama administration 9 different times. And I want to tell you about a few of those cases because I want you to be watching for them and I want you to realize what we're up against. We have a lawsuit that we filed in the fall against the Bureau of Land Management. I'm sure you all have heard of it. They decided that the Red River was theirs and everything on it and everything around it. And they decided that land that had been held by people for sometimes over 100 years was their land. And so the private property owners sued, and we intervened in the case because obviously it affects Texas and our tax base. And so we filed that lawsuit. That's at the very beginnings, but it's a really important property rights case against the federal government. We've also had the opportunity to sue the federal government, the EPA specifically, 4 times. And the most recent success for us was called the Clean Power Plan, which is what the Obama administration has called their plan to basically strip power from the states related to our ability to regulate electricity. And the unfortunate part of this is it will do nothing for the air, but it will cost consumers significantly. Their electricity costs will go up and reliability will go down. We have about 24 states involved in that, and it was amazing timing. We had lost in the circuit court in D.C. We appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court and asked for a stay on the implementation of this EPA rule that was going to cost the state of Texas billions of dollars every year. And we wanted to stay because we actually wanted to go through the trial. Because what the EPA has done in the past is they'll implement regulations. We have to go implement before the case is over. And by the time we win the case, we've already had to implement. We've already spent all the money. And so we sued and we asked for a stay. It's very unusual for the court to grant it. And Scalia, the week he died, was part of a 5-4 majority to give us a stay so that we could actually go litigate the case and not have to spend billions of dollars implementing before the case was done. So that was a miracle that we were able to get that done before he passed away. I want to talk about 2 other cases. Obamacare, what you thought was a done deal, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but we sued the administration over Obamacare. It hasn't gotten a lot of coverage, but one of the fundamental problems they have is this is going to shock you, but they can't afford it. Did you know that? They can't afford it. Yeah, none of us can. And so they decided in March of last year that the states were going to have to kick in money. Well, for Texas, that's about $125 million. Well, there's nothing in statute that says that. It's not in the law. Congressman Gomer, I know you're shocked that occasionally the president just kind of makes things up. Well, he did that in this case, and he said we owed the money. We are challenging him, first saying there's no statutory authority, which is a pretty good claim in and of itself. We're also saying that he didn't have the constitutional authority to order a state to pay taxes. That's unconstitutional. And third, we're using the Obamacare case against him because one of the things that Justice Roberts did that was favorable to us in a bad decision was he said that the federal government cannot coerce a state to participate in a program. And so in this case, they're threatening to take away our Medicaid money and our CHIP money to force us to pay this tax. And so this case you will see coming up probably to the Supreme Court over the next year. And finally, I could talk about this stuff all night, unfortunately. But as a matter of fact, I saw Greg Abbott, right after when I got sworn in, he swore me in and he said, "You'll be the busiest Attorney General in the history of the state." And I was bragging a little bit because he stole one of my lines at an event in Denton County. And so I got up and said, "Well, you know, I'm going to pass you. You've served the federal government in 6 years over 31 times. I'm going to pass you in 1 year." Well, I told him recently, I said, "I really don't want to pass you. We've sued him 9 times. We're on a really fast pace. But if I'm successful in that, that means that Hillary Clinton got elected. So I really don't want to pass that record." But I want to talk about this final case. It's immigration. And I'm sure you guys have seen some of the coverage of that over the last week. It is a critical case to this country. It's not just about immigration. Yeah, it is. Let me just kind of give you the general concept. For 6 years, the President of the United States, from the time he campaigned until 2014, August of 2014, he said over 20 times, "This is a democracy. Congress has to change immigration. I can't do it." He literally said, "I am not a king. I'm not an emperor. I can't wave my magic wand." And then in November of 2014, President Obama signed an executive order granting lawful status to 4 million people who were unlawful, and he came out and said it, "I changed the law." Greg Abbott filed a lawsuit in December. My 3rd week, because I didn't have enough to do with marriage and abortion the previous week, we were in district court arguing that the president didn't have the authority. We were asking for preliminary injunction to stop it from going into effect. And our argument was simple. The president doesn't have any statutory authority or constitutional authority to make up law. That is completely in the power of our congressmen. We won at the district court level. We then won at the Fifth Circuit twice because they tried to stop us twice. And then this last week, we made the case in the U.S. Supreme Court. And since we won at the Fifth Circuit, we have a chance with a tie we'll win. And so that's another case that you'll see in the coming weeks. Probably at the end of June, the Supreme Court will make that decision. And for me, that case is the case of the last decades, because if the Supreme Court tells us that President Obama can change the law, Congress is irrelevant. And every president going forward, Hillary Clinton could decide that the Second Amendment, she just wants to change it. And so this is a critical case. So I'm going to just conclude by saying 2 things. One is, if you're reading stuff about me in the paper, please don't believe it. And know that I'm going to continue to defend myself, and I'm going to win. And second, I'm going to continue to defend the Constitution and defend the liberties that are guaranteed by that Constitution. We will not quit doing that no matter what happens. So I want you to know that I'm going to win, we're going to win. And God bless this Tea Party and the people that are here for what you do, not just for Tarrant County, but for the entire state and for the entire nation. Thank you. God bless you.